The so-called war against the demons ruined the superficially cooperative relation between Idolith and Gwyn's empires. But in times past, both empires engaged in commerce and had developed extensive trade routes connecting their territories. The original purpose of the Bells of Awakening could have been to announce the coming of envoys from the other faction. The Depths having been a trade route explains why Domhall of Zena sits there, waiting for customers. The place was once a blooming commercial spot. That trade route, however, was closed and became a sewer complex after the war began. And later, that sewer complex became a prison of sorts to greedy undead, a term which, in context, alludes to cannibalism. As the curse of undead and its consequences began to spread within the burgs, due to the undead hunts that took place there, more and more undead hollowed and were made slaves to their urges and had to resort to cannibalism and soul stealing to become whole again. Some of the more dangerous zones were quarantined, but that proved to not be enough to impede the effects of the curse. Those desperate enough to commit such crimes started being exiled and locked away in the sewers. How is this related to Blighttown? Simple. Blighttown is where all the sickening water, organic residues, and corpses fell into, so one can imagine the amount of impurity that is present in that swamp. What exactly is the Great Blightpus? It's obvious that the swamp's water is still impure, since it afflicts poison, but is that the Great Blightpus? I don't think so. First off, we are told that the fair lady swallowed it. That damaged her so much that it's implied she needed to become a firekeeper, and is still in need of humanity for her survival. That's what we offer her when we enter her covenants. That's what Kirk is risking his life to grant her. With that said, do we even get to see someone who's suffering from Blightpus? Yes, but not in Blighttown. The slimes are only found in the depths. There's not much direct information on them besides their visuals and their meticulous placement. They look like a liquefied mass of residues and melted, inflamed-looking flesh, and they appear to feature a disfigured face. They are often holding onto the ceiling, and will drop onto the player to devour them, and then impale us with protruding bones. One could describe them as being a literal giant condensed mass of pus. They ate so many humans that their bodies began to bloat, and then softened into sludge. This phenomena, as a consequence of repeated instances of cannibalism, is confirmed by Dark Souls 3.
Let's take Aldrich for one, a right and proper cleric, only he developed a habit of devouring men. He ate so many that he bloated like a drowned pig, then softened into sludge.
The fact that they are exclusively found in the Depths and not in Blighttown is very significant. It hints that the Blightpus infected undead that were in Blighttown got healed, and the ones we encounter are those who either didn't leave the Depths or somehow climbed all the way up from Blighttown and were not present during the Fair Lady's deed. Many of the ones that were infected beforehand and then got healed by the Fair Lady were turned into the Egg Servants, allowing themselves to be transformed into demons by a deliberate parasitic infection as to demonstrate devotion to their savior. Most Blighttown residents are aggressive towards you for that same reason. For example, take the infested cannibalistic barbarians, who appear to be in direct guard of both entrances and access to the swamp, and of Quilag's domain's entrance. All enemies there seem to work together. The ghouls and barbarians compose the front lines, while the blow dart snipers attack you from ranged, safer spots, protected by them. Moreover, even the fire-breathing dogs might have been trained in order to help stop invaders from trespassing the area. Similarly to the zombie dogs domesticated by the Capra demon we find in the lower Undead Burg. That's guerrilla warfare level of strategizing and cooperation for a couple of supposedly common hollowed undeads to practice. They are one of the most organized and intelligent group of enemies in the series. Just a quick note, for those of you who are familiar with Demon Souls, this all must have sounded familiar, right? That's not all, however. Although the slimes are the most literal example of Blightpus we find in the game, there's also another creature who may be afflicted with a similar condition. When first entering the Gaping Dragon's arena, the cutscene that plays shows us that he's climbing the sewers, similarly to how the Blightpus slimes would have done. Interestingly, his body is nothing like a regular archdragon's. As the Dragon King's Great Text item description states, he's deformed. In fact, the four wings are still there, but the rest of his form is a hideous mess, topping it off with a giant gaping mouth which opens from his underbody and reveals itself to be filled with sharp teeth-like bones. During his encounter, he can vomit a pool of what might be Blightpus. If you look closely at the liquid he's vomiting, it looks eerily similar to the Blightpus slimes. He may have gotten food poisoned after eating some of the Blightpus afflicted undead.